The life of James Calmer Dokken. James had a close run-in when he was about 12 years old with a den of rattlesnakes. Him and his father, George, left the Dokken Ranch one morning to go bone gathering. As they left, they were searching for bones. James spotted what he thought was a rope in the grass. So he went over there, stooped down, picked it up, happened to be a bundle of rattlesnakes all intertwined with each other. So George ran back to the ranch, grabbed his rifle and his little stick with like a hook on it. He proceeded back to where they found the snakes, and they pulled out about 50 snakes, killed 50 of them, and then the second day they went back and killed about another 23. James Calmer Dokken, he was my great-grandfather, and I'm going to talk a little bit about his life, his early childhood, life in the military, and life after the military. So I'll first discuss his early childhood and life events. George Dokken and Gertrude, or Emma Dokken, were his parents. They gave birth to him on the 17th of October, 1924 in Ecolata, Montana. He was actually born inside the farmhouse right there on the ranch. He had two older sisters, Frances Dokken and Evelyn Dokken, and then shortly after James was born, Emma decided to divorce George, and she moved to Baker, Montana. After moving to Baker, Montana, she met a gentleman by the name of Bill Giving. They shortly married after that. They had 3 boys after that, and Billy Giving, Connie Giving, and Monty Giving. Through this whole thing, James was convinced that Bill was his actual biological father, when he wasn't. He never met George. He was, taken away from him at a very young age, and so Emma actually ended up dying when he was about 12 years old. So when that happened, George came and requested that James go live with him back on the farm. So James agreed to this, and when he was about 12, so this is about when the rattlesnake incident happened, he agreed to stay there. This is where he grew up, helping on the farm. He went to school here. During high school is when he met his high school sweetheart, my great-grandmother, Phyllis Holfelt, and they graduated Carter County High School on the 13th of April, 1943. After graduating, he continued to help his father on the farm. 3 months later, he then joined the Navy on the 10th of July, 1943. He was shipped to boot camp, and then after boot camp, he went on to go to the Navy Medical Corps School. And this is where he met his very good friend, Henry Bud Evans. He went by Bud. And then after Medical Corps School, they were shipped out together on the USS Dixie to Guadalcanal, assigned to the 1st Marine Division Mobile Hospital 8. They were there for about 4 to 6 months, and then after that, they were shipped to Banica, which is an island that's part of the Solomon Islands, to work for Mobile Hospital 10. Bud said James was actually quite the daredevil. I guess one day James said he wanted to be where the action was. So he volunteered, and he was actually sent to the Philippines and assigned to a construction battalion. He was actually there when the Philippines were liberated on the 20th of October, 1944. After that, he was honorably discharged as a pharmacist mate, 3rd class, on the 9th of March, 1946. James survived the war, and I'm sure he saw a lot of gruesome things being a medic during that time. He came back to the United States in 1946, and this is when he married my great-grandmother, Phyllis Holfelt, on the 11th of April, 1946. About a year and a half later, my grandma, Diane Dokken, was born in 1947. About 3 years later, they had another daughter, Patsy Dokken. She was born in 1950. 3 years after Patsy, they had a son. They named him Terry. And that was in 1953. Shortly after Terry was born, they packed up and moved to Nebraska. They were only there for about a year, and then shortly after that they moved to San Jose, California, where they purchased their first house on the 28th of September 1954. They had one more child after that, and they named him Casey in 1957. James worked at the Ford assembly plant right there in San Jose, California for a few years. After that, James's brother-in-law was able to get him on with the union for the operating engineers number 3 in 1954 as a heavy equipment mechanic. Worked there until about 1975, and then him and Phyllis decided to move back to Columbia Falls, Montana. When he moved back, he got a job working for Louisiana Pacific as a millwright. Unfortunately, the Pacific Lumber Mill was shut down at the beginning of November 1983. 60 employees were laid off, and the industrial manager blamed the closure on rising interest rates that hurt the building market. About 2 years after that, James was diagnosed with lymphoma. He went through a grueling 2 years of chemo until he passed on the 18th of December 1987. Unfortunately, I never got to meet the strong, adventurous, and daredevil person my grandpa tells me about. Today I shared you the life of James Calmer Dokken, his life before the military, life during the military, and early childhood. My grandma actually tells me that her sister Patsy has a can with all of the rattles in it still from the rattlesnake incident, and I hope to see them one day.